Good to see everybody. Excited that we've started practice. It's official practice because now you have the summer and the stuff before official practice starts. We started last Tuesday. We did 2-a-days on Tuesday and Wednesday, 6 a.m. and 3 p.m. Gave them a day off and then kind of got into a normal practice structure Friday, Saturday, and we're back at it here this week. So we're starting to trying to get it together. But like I said, we had the summer, we had the fall, so it's not like we're starting from scratch. But it's a great time of year because we're doing basketball every day, doing what we love to do. To this point, it is early, very early. So let's put that in perspective. I've been pretty pleased with their approach. There's some ability out there. There's some depth out there. And so there's some things to work with. But as you guys know, you know me well enough now, it's early. So to make any kind of broad statements about anything, it's too early to say that after just a couple practices.
You want to go ahead and get the I don't know out of the way on the waiver process?
Yeah, so I figured the question was coming, and I don't know if I'll have an answer that'll satisfy anybody, but we've submitted waivers to the NCAA on Aziz and Jamil's behalf. We're going to respect that process. I'm not going to say anything more about it. Honestly, out of respect to Aziz and Jamil's privacy. And, we respect the process. We're going through the process. We will, let everybody know when we know something. And we're supporting them through the process. And that's about all I think is appropriate to say at this point.
Point guard, got two new guys kind of coming in for that spot. Where have Day and Jizzle kind of got themselves as we're getting into the nitty gritty in practice?
Yeah, it's exciting in some ways, the point guard position, because we recruited two guys, and Day and everybody's gonna have to get used to Davion Thomas. He goes by Day, so we're gonna call him what his mom calls him. That's the way I've always done it. So his mom calls him Day, so we're gonna call him Day. But it's exciting because we really believed in both him and Jizzle in the recruiting process. And we got two guys that don't have experience in Division I college basketball. Certainly Day has some college experience in junior college, but that we believe in a great deal. So trying to get them up to speed, it's a fun challenge for me as a coach. So far, they've been incredibly hardworking and coachable. They're humble, but also confident. So are they where we need them to be today? No. They're not. They wouldn't tell you that they are. But they've done a nice job of doing their part in the summer and the fall stuff. And we're working on getting them up to speed every day because we know how important that position is in college basketball. It's certainly important to the way that we're trying to play. Do we have a ton of depth at point guard? No. That doesn't feel comfortable to say. I don't have to say that a lot of times as the head coach at Cincinnati. But the two guys we have there, we believe in a great deal. They have a lot of ability, and they embody the values of this program, and that part does feel good to say. And so I do think we'll get those guys up to speed. I just hope it's sooner rather than later. I guess the other thing about point guard is Simas Lukosius, has a lot of point guard qualities. Obviously, his size maybe dictates that he's more of a swing player, a forward player in his 2 years at Butler. But, guys, he's really good with the ball in his hands. He's really good in on-ball action. He's really good in the open floor with the ball in his hands. He creates offensively plays for others, which is one of the ways that I think about a lead guard. So he has some offensive qualities, even if he's maybe not the most conditioned with his size and his athleticism to guard point guards on the defensive end. But we do think he'll have some point guard responsibilities offensively along with Day and Jizzle.
You lost some guys that could have come back. You replaced them with some pretty good guys. How excited are you, and maybe should the fans be, particularly if the two big guys get eligible?
Yeah, I think when fans see our team out there on the floor, they'll be excited just about the depth, the length, the size, the athleticism, the mentality. I think that the thing that's been neat is watching that evolve, over the last couple of years. And I think this team's continuing to grow that mentality, it's been kind of a steady growth since I got here, and I think this team will take another huge step there if we do the right things in practice every day. So I think people will be excited to see this group, in its totality, for sure.
With the amount of turnover on the roster, how much of a challenge has it been for you specifically to kind of get everyone acclimated to each other and the brand of Cincinnati basketball that you want to coach?
Yeah, well, turnover in college basketball is part of it now. I mean, the job of being a college basketball coach at this level has probably changed 2 or 3 times since I've even been here. What the job entails. But I think any of my colleagues will tell you, you look around the country, that's pretty normal. So trying to evolve and understand that as a head coach, I think, is really important. And I've worked really hard at that. Our staff's worked really hard at that. I will say with the 7 new faces, you go, man, there's a lot of new faces, and a lot of those guys are really important to our success this year. But the one thing we do have is we have a really solid nucleus of returners that make it feel like it's not just a brand new team. Odie and Vic, and in particular, John Newman. I can keep kind of going down the list here, those 6 guys, but those guys bring that continuity and that older leadership to a group, so it doesn't feel like you're just trying to work with a new team completely. You get into practice and they know the drills and they know the points of emphasis, and so we're actually a lot farther along this year in terms of where we are in practice and where we are as a team, given the transfers and the freshmen. But I think that's more because of the guys that are returning. So we do have some good continuity, even though we have some new faces as well.
A lot of experience on this team. How has that experience helped with the development of Rayvon, Jizzle, and as well as Dane Skillins?
Yeah, I think we pride ourselves as a program on development. One thing we talk about a lot is we don't just say that we develop our players. We define what development means to us in every facet of basketball, of strength and conditioning, of mental conditioning, of growing up as a young person. Like, we define what development means, and we have a plan of how we execute that every day. And so we're really proud of the guys that have been in this program, and the longer they're here, the more they develop. We're proud of that growth. But when you have some guys that have been a part of that process on the team, it helps get buy-in from those new players, because they see, number one, they see the example of how to do it, and the guys that are returning are a great example of how to do it. And then number two, it helps them buy in because those guys have bought in and believe in what we're doing. So yeah, anytime you have older players and continuity in a positive environment, I think we really do have a positive environment. I think the impacts of everybody's growth, across the board is relevant, and certainly we're seeing that, but we're not satisfied. We want even more of it. So
you mentioned the newer faces with Seamus, Aziz, Jamil. Just talk about CJ Frederick a little bit, and what have you seen from him this offseason heading into this season?
Yeah, I think you look at those newcomers this year, it's a wide variety of guys, that have different ability. They kind of play different positions, or maybe have different strengths and weaknesses, and also, different levels of maturity and experience. So you got somebody like CJ Frederick, who, he might have as much experience in college basketball as anybody I've coached over the course of his career. He's played on NCAA tournament, played on a team that was top 5 in the country the whole year at Iowa, that had a chance to win the national championship, and was a starter and key contributor to that team. So it's 2 years there. He's actually 3, I believe. 2, I'm sorry, and then 2 years at Kentucky, and he's been through a lot, which I think gives great perspective to leadership, because he's been one of the key players in both programs that he's played at. He's also sat out and redshirted and fought through injuries. He really does have a plethora of experience that gives him ability to be mature and lead. And then the neat thing about him is he has a really unique way of connecting to everybody around him. Like, he's one of those guys that comes in and does a good job connecting with the whole team. So yeah, he brings something different than Jizzle and Rayvon do, because they're coming from such different perspectives. But he's done a nice job of working with our whole team. And certainly we have really high expectations for CJ, and he's had I'll tell everybody, because I'm sure this is what people are that know him or followed him are going to ask. He's had a really healthy summer and a healthy preseason. I think it's his first summer in a couple years, or off season, that he's been able to even participate. I didn't realize this until I started getting to know him here this spring, but he didn't play basketball, live basketball. Wasn't cleared for live basketball until the first day of practice last year at Kentucky. Man, that's really hard. That's really hard that you haven't had any summer, any build-up training, and then you get thrown into it. So he's had that here all summer, all fall. He's healthy, knock on wood, and I think that puts him in position to really perform well for us.
Speaking of build-up, the non-conference slate, how did that all come together? Obviously, heavy home scheduling and no holiday tournament this year compared to going to Maui last year.
Yeah, it was obviously there's strategically, you're transitioning to a new conference, and it's been the best basketball conference in America, for the last recent history, right? I mean, I think it's almost inarguable. I always say people in recruiting try to act like their leagues are better, and you kind of laugh because it's one thing you can't argue. Doesn't matter what metric you value over the last 5 or 6 years. It doesn't matter whether it's national championships, whether it's KenPom, whether it's the net. I mean, you kind of any advanced analytical system. This league has been the best league in college basketball for 5 or 6 years. So you're entering that league, and you don't have experience in that league. We wanted to make sure that we were at home a lot because we're going to be on the road a ton, traveling all over the country. Now we go to Utah, and we should go to Arizona here in a couple of years. So we wanted to make sure we were home, that we got a chance to build our team here, in Cincinnati. We didn't want to over-travel early. Certainly that doesn't mean that we padded our schedule, because I look at our schedule and there's some real challenges, and they might not be all names that our fans will go, wow, that's a crazy challenge. But I think if people really look at some of the opponents that are coming in here, some of them are picked to win their league, or some of them played in the NCAA tournament last year. A lot of them are picked in the top 3 in their league. So we challenged ourselves more than people may think, but trying to be home and trying to be around the area was really important. I look at, like the Dayton game, that'll be a really intense environment. I think there's traditional rivalry there from the location and history. So that'll be something that'll really challenge us, prepare us for league play. Obviously, the Crosstown Shootout's going to be that every year. Damon Stoudemire and I were able to get together and agree on a home and home, so we'll play Georgia Tech here. So those are some of the marquee games for sure. But I think people can't look just at those. I think there's some other really challenging games on the schedule. So I think it was a nice balance of challenging ourselves a little bit, but trying to be home and trying to get ready for this transition into the Big 12.
Guy that used to sit in that chair a few years ago used to talk about being able to dance all the dances. Do you feel like with this roster, you've got the opportunity to play big, play small, be able to crank up the tempo, be able to grind people out? Do you feel like maybe for the first time here, you've got a roster that can do all the different things?
I do, yeah. I mean, I think we've tried to build it that way for certain, Chad, that we have some versatility, some lineup versatility. People know how aggressive I want to play defense. You look at 12 years as a head coach, and over the overwhelming majority of that, we've been a aggressive defense and a successful defense. So we want to do that here at the highest level. You have to have rim presence to do that. I believe to really extend pressure, you got to have guys at the rim that make you pay for just getting down there. And I think you have to have the positional size to do that. So defensively, I think we've crafted a roster that has some of those components. I think we've made sure our style of play allows for lineup versatility. So the stuff that we've really spent time on in the summer and the fall is whether we have 2 big guys out there, your traditional big guys, or whether we have 1 big with, some swing forwards, which we have quite a few of those as well. The habits of how we play offensively and defensively are very consistent, so that we can sub or change a lineup, which may really impact our opponent, but doesn't have us thinking a whole lot. It's pretty seamless, and so I'm proud of the roster that's been crafted, but also proud of kind of some of the structure our staff's come up with to make it all work. going into a new league.
Two more?
Dan Skilling's had some games last year down the stretch where, you just kind of went, wow. And he developed. Has he developed that much more where you're going to see more wows?
Listen, we sat in here all year last year, and I think I was really clear, the confidence I have in Dan and his ability, his talent. He was just so young. Not young just because he was a freshman, young to basketball, right? I mean, Dan, most of us started playing basketball when we could walk. I know that's how I was, and most college players are like that. Dan, got to organize basketball much later than most people, and certainly played for great coaches back in Philadelphia, throughout high school and throughout the summer stuff. But there's things because of his young nature to basketball that just weren't there as a freshman, and we spent a lot of time trying to get him up to speed. So I think the first thing that I see with Dan, not just now, but over the course of the summer and the fall is, there's just things he understands now that he didn't understand as a freshman. So that learning curve just isn't quite as big, and that's allowing him to go play with his natural instincts and gifts that we've all seen flashes of. So I think we'll see that more consistently because he doesn't have to think quite as much. And then the other thing, I think he's worked really hard. I mean, he's worked hard on his body. He's worked really hard on his skill set in his game. And so you can see that kind of improvement. I say this to our team all the time. The best thing about freshmen is they become sophomores. And I tell freshmen, you don't have to wait until your sophomore year to become a sophomore. I keep telling Jizzle every day and Rayvon, you guys can be sophomores today if you'd like. We don't have to wait until this time next year. But Dan's kind of gone through that process this offseason of going from a freshman to what I'd call a sophomore, meaning a seasoned college player. And, I expect us to see good results over the course of the year there.
Last one.
You talked before about Jamil Reynolds, trying to get him in shape and being in the process of using his abilities on both sides of the floor in every possession. How have you seen that process kind of go forward, and how has he expanded his skill set in that area?
I'll tell you what, guys, I've been really, really impressed with what he's done since the day that he got here. Number one, I think he feels that he's in a healthy environment. Like, we really value our guys' health and their mental well-being. So I think he's in a really healthy environment where he feels comfortable. And you just look at it. He came in, and I was very clear with him from day one. I'm going to do my part for you, but you got to do your part. And part of it is coming in here with the right mindset to work every day. And he comes in, and I don't want to share too much information, but I want to say he's lost 45 pounds in 3 months. And we're seeing, we played against him last year at Temple. And if you really watched him at Temple, there's flashes over the course of every game he played. He makes 2 or 3 plays every night that just make you go, wow, jaw-dropping for somebody with his size, right? And the biggest challenge is getting that to be more consistent. And I kind of felt like getting him in a different kind of condition would allow for that. And I think our hunch was right, because the better shape he gets in, he's really, really invested in doing the right things and the right approach every day. He's lost a ton of weight. He looks great. He's running the floor as good as anybody on our team. He's maybe one of the best passers I've coached. Might be the best passer I've ever coached in the front court. He's shown the ability to shoot 3-point shots, which is wild. He can actually really shoot the basketball. His scoring on the box is well documented, and he's certainly a presence defensively. I'm trying to get him to get out there and guard guards and move his feet, and I think he thought I was crazy the first couple weeks he was here in the summer asking him to do that. And there's some possessions in practice where I stop and I go, wow, if he can do that consistently, which I believe he's capable of, I think he's going to turn not just the heads of our fans and the people that watch our team, but I think he'll turn heads all across basketball. So I've been pleased with him. He's still got a lot of growing to do, but he's taken some massive steps forward in a really short period of time here.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.